Beijing is preparing for war. China is building up its military power at a historic pace. So the best kind of war is to thwart the enemy's plans. Second best is to break up his alliances, and third is to defeat his armies. This is a quote from Sun Tzu and his The Art of War. For thousands of years, it has been the main book for the Chinese army and Chinese generals. The great strategist notes that patience is one of the main tools for a successful war. If there is no security and no confidence in victory, then it is not worth going to war. Also, according to Sun Tzu, war should be short and victorious, not long and exhausting. That is why China is capable of waiting for the right moment for centuries in order to seize it timely and effectively. Has that very moment arrived? That is the question that arises. American intelligence says yes. According to reports from the Pentagon, China is preparing the largest military buildup in the country's history and is already getting ready to invade Taiwan. Hello, everyone. My name is Anastasiia Husarieva. Right now, we are going to delve into China's ambitions for 2026. But first, as usual, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to our channel, give us a like, and write in the comments what you personally expect from 2026 and from China. And now I'll start telling you everything step by step. So according to the Pentagon, China is carrying out the largest military buildup in the entire history of the PRC and is preparing for a potential military scenario around Taiwan. Against this backdrop, the United States is increasingly viewing Beijing's actions as a direct challenge to its own security. One of the key elements of China's new strategy is the implementation of a so-called early warning system for a counterstrike. This refers to a shift to a mode in which China's strategic forces remain at the highest level of combat readiness and are capable of launching a nuclear strike even before enemy missiles actually detonate on Chinese territory. The annual report of the United States Department of Defense notes that such a system allows missiles to be launched immediately after receiving a signal of a possible attack. The Chinese military plans to improve this mechanism throughout the current decade, viewing it as a tool for strategic deterrence and for preventing a first strike by potential adversaries. At the same time, despite significant changes in tactics, the pace of production of new nuclear warheads in 2024 has somewhat slowed down. By the end of the year, China's arsenal was estimated at approximately 600 warheads, a figure that matches previous forecasts. The Pentagon does not specify the exact reasons for this slowdown, but confirms that Beijing's strategic goal remains unchanged, to increase the number of warheads to about 1,000 units by 2030. According to the U.S. Department of Defense, this will provide Chinese President Xi Jinping with a wider range of options for deploying nuclear weapons on intercontinental missiles, submarines, and aviation platforms. In Washington, such a buildup of capabilities is seen as a factor that makes U.S. territory increasingly vulnerable. China's shift to a launch-on-warning posture is intensifying discussions in the White House about the need to deploy additional nuclear forces. The situation is further complicated by the fact that the United States is simultaneously facing nuclear challenges from Russia, creating a unique scenario for American strategy in which it must confront two major nuclear powers at once. The Pentagon report also emphasizes that China is undertaking a historic buildup of military power, which calls into question President Donald Trump's plans to establish new frameworks for controlling the nuclear arsenals of the US, China, and Russia. This was reported by Bloomberg News Agency. They refer to the findings of the American Department of Defense. The document also notes that the Chinese military is becoming increasingly technologically advanced and resilient, is cautious about entering into large-scale agreements with the US, and is closely studying Russia's experience and mistakes in the war in Ukraine. At the same time, Beijing is increasing pressure on Taiwan. Although the report mentions the continuation of the strategic partnership between China and Russia, it emphasizes that this cooperation is almost certainly based on their shared interest in countering the United States of America. At the same time, this interaction is hindered by mutual distrust between the parties. Special attention in the American assessments is given to the development of hypersonic weapons. Experts warn that China is already ahead of even the United States of America in this field. It is precisely against the backdrop of such threats that Donald Trump previously announced plans to create a missile defense system tentatively called the Iron Dome, which is intended to provide protection against both innovative and traditional ballistic missiles. On December 22nd, the Pentagon reported the detection of more than 100 solid-fuel intercontinental DF-31 missiles deployed in secret silos on the border of China and Mongolia. And according to in secret silos on the border of China and Mongolia. According to a draft report by the US Department of Defense, Beijing is modernizing its nuclear arsenal faster than any other country in the world. Although American intelligence was previously aware of the construction of these silos, information about the number of missiles already deployed was announced for the first time. This data emerged amid statements by Donald Trump about his intention to develop a global denuclearization plan together with Russia and China. However, the Pentagon report notes a lack of interest from Beijing in such initiatives. The document explicitly states that the United States continues to observe China's reluctance to take steps toward broader arms control negotiations. Additional tension is created by the approach of February 2026, the expiration date of the New START Treaty, the last agreement between the US and Russia that limits nuclear arsenals. Experts warn that in the absence of a new, possibly trilateral treaty, the world could find itself in an uncontrolled arms race. Beijing, for its part, traditionally rejects the accusations contained in American reports, calling them an attempt to discredit China. The Chinese authorities insist on their commitment to a no-first-use nuclear strategy. It is also worth noting that tensions continue to persist. On December 26th, China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced sanctions against 10 individuals and 20 American defense companies for assisting Taiwan and selling weapons. Reuters reports this. Among those targeted by the Chinese sanctions is the Boeing subsidiary in St. Louis. The measures include freezing all assets that these companies and individuals have in China, as well as prohibiting domestic organizations and individuals from doing business with them. This was reported by the Chinese ministry. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs also added that individuals on the sanctions list are even prohibited from entering the country. And the military tension around China is increasing not only in the context of relations with the United States of America. Another important area remains India. India is a nuclear state with which Beijing has a long-standing territorial dispute. According to the Wall Street Journal, both countries are investing significant resources in the development of transport and military infrastructure along their shared border in the Himalayas. The border clashes in 2020 exposed India's serious vulnerability. While China had spent decades building an extensive network of roads and railways in the border regions, India had long refrained from investing in similar infrastructure. As a result, China could deploy reinforcements within a matter of hours, while it took Indian troops about a week to do the same. In certain high-altitude areas, poor roads meant that regions could remain isolated for weeks during the winter period. After the events of 2020, New Delhi began to reconsider its approach. One of the key projects was the Zojila Tunnel. This is a 15-kilometer infrastructure facility located at an altitude of about 3.5 kilometers. Its cost exceeds $750 million. Its construction began a few months after the clashes and is expected to significantly simplify logistics in the Ladakh region, which can be cut off from the rest of the country for up to half a year due to snowfall. Another point of tension remains the Pangong Tso Lake. After 2020, both sides intensified infrastructure construction in this area. China built a bridge connecting the northern and southern shores of the lake, which allowed for faster movement of troops. India responded by expanding its outposts, modernizing roads, building more than 30 helipads, and upgrading runways along the border. Against this backdrop, global media attention has once again focused on Taiwan, which has become the center of worldwide attention. The German publication Bild, citing sources in Western intelligence, reported on possible timelines for a military operation. According to their information, an invasion may be considered if the midterm elections in the United States lead to a political crisis and internal instability. In Beijing, this scenario is reportedly seen as a window of opportunity when Washington's attention will be focused on domestic issues. It is also reported that China is modernizing civilian ferries for military purposes and plans to build more than 70 large vessels by the end of 2026. According to analysts' assessments, a military scenario will become Beijing's choice if the country's leadership concludes that other ways to defeat Taiwan have already been exhausted. Amid alarming reports, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte stated that there is a possibility of coordinated actions by China and Russia regarding Taiwan and Europe, respectively. According to him, in the event of Chinese military action against Taiwan, Beijing may try to involve Moscow in order to divert NATO's attention in Europe. At the same time, Rutte emphasized that NATO remains a defensive alliance and considers readiness a key element of its strategy. Responding to a question about Europe's ability to defend itself without the support of the United States, the Secretary General assured that there is no cause for concern. According to him, Europe's security is directly linked to the security of the United States, and therefore the US is interested in maintaining and supporting NATO. Here, of course, it's hard to say whether things have changed in the past few years, or rather, what exactly has changed in the past few years since similar reports about an imminent Chinese invasion of Taiwan, which, let me remind you, is recognized by the international community as a territory of Beijing, have been appearing regularly with growing tension from the global media. Nevertheless, we can be absolutely certain that regarding the sphere of geopolitical military tensions, 2026 will most certainly not be any less turbulent or eventful than preceding years, whether that's unfortunately or fortunately. So that's the information as of today. Friends, thank you for being with us. Be sure to subscribe and give this video a like. Write in the comments what you think. Based on everything you have heard, could 2026 really be the year when China attacks Taiwan? And in turn, we will of course keep you updated on all the most relevant and important events happening in Ukraine and around the world. Take care of yourselves and wash your hands with soap. Bye-bye, everyone.